Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining me. This video may turn out a little combobulated because for the life of me, I don't know where to start. I really don't, because there's so much to talk about, but let's start with Andrew and Andrew, neither of whom I'm particularly fond of, but the one may go to jail and the other not. Well, at least that's what I think. Anyway, apparently it was announced by the Thames Valley Police that the investigation is still ongoing and that the misconduct while in office now includes possible sexual misconduct. Well, I'm glad that the investigation is still in full swing because this is what I said from day one. If Andrew is as bad as everyone says he is, then investigate the man and charge him. There's no point in pulling a Lani and battle to hold your gleeful smile while you trash the man, because each time you do so, another book sells. I would still have bought the book and maybe gleefully salivated about it if I did not know that there were indeed footnotes stating he has no proof of this and that, or that this or that is true or not. Now, look, if you don't know, you don't write it. He can be very grateful that Andrew has no desire to go to court. Well, even if he wanted to, it would not be a good idea, would it? Anyway, Lani or no Lani, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is in deep trouble, and my friends, if Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has done what people say he did, well then, sorry, he deserves a knobbly, bumpy bed and slop for breakfast in the United Kingdom's worst prison. Now, the financial and business aspect of the allegations against Andrew is one aspect of it, and I read that the police already have proof that Andrew did pass on sensitive information to Epstein during his time as envoy. Well, I honestly don't know about you, but for me, that sounds like treason, especially coming from Andrew, a prince of the realm. The released documents certainly make it seem that Andrew is guilty of at least that. Not that that is not serious enough, it certainly is. Where I do have a few issues, or with the things I do have issues with, are things like the public's definition of trafficking. And I'll tell you why, and it is a problem a number of rich men have. You see, according to the UN Trafficking Protocol, the act of trafficking includes the act, recruitment, transport, transfer, and harboring or receipt of people. The means, how it is done, threat or the use of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power, or giving payments. And of course, purpose, things like exploitation, forced labor, organ removal, etc., etc. Okay, but there are fully legal distinctions. Laws very similar in both the United States and the United Kingdom, and even in my own little country. The wording is indeed a little different, but I'm not going to bother with that because I am going to give it to you in layman's terms anyway. So first, trafficking versus smuggling. Human trafficking involves exploitation and a lack of consent, or consent obtained through coercion, whereas smuggling involves voluntary illegal crossing of borders. Now, hang in there, my dear friends. There's a reason why I'm going through all these things. Traffickers commonly confiscate passports and other documents, threats of violence against victims or their families, psychological manipulation, blah, blah, blah. But okay, guys, now here's the interesting part. So a woman who was in her 20s at the time alleged that she was sent to the United Kingdom by Epstein for the purpose of a sexual encounter with Andrew. According to her, she was wined and dined at Royal Lodge and she spent the night. Now, I am going to assume it was the Russian girl or woman Epstein spoke about in one of his emails to Andrew. Anyway, according to this woman, she was also given tea and a tour of Buckingham Palace the next day. Now, all jokes aside, and seriously, I am desperately wanting someone to explain to me how this is a crime. The woman was in her 20s. Okay, Epstein may have given her money or paid her. I do not see anything specific about that, but he likely did. Then she boarded a flight to London. She was not held hostage, did not have a handler with her. She could have, and in relative safety, told a stewardess or anybody else, airport security, anybody, that she needed help. She's being trafficked. But she did not do that. She was likely picked up from the airport, or worse even, maybe she hauled a taxi. She had dinner with Andrew, had sex with him, stayed the night, and had a grand tour and tea at Buckingham Palace. That, my dears, if anything, was willing prostitution. Now, don't get angry, because here is the awkward truth. If you are sort of up to date with the international news, you would have heard about the Ukrainian rent boys. The term rent boys basically refers to male prostitutes. We're not going to take this any further, end of. Well, why are people even laughing and scoffing behind cupped hands if this happens every single day in Britain and other countries with Ukrainian and Russian girls? And I mean every single darn day. There are formal and informal networks ranging from high-end dating apps to exclusive social circles in Mayfair and Chelsea, where some women fleeing the economic instability of war in Ukraine use their youth and beauty as a tool for survival or financial advancement. Okay, making excuses for prostitution. But let's stay with it is a tool for survival or financial advancement, to put it in proper Chelsea Mayfair way. Of course, we shall not call it what it is, because in this woke world, that would be only too awful. Okay, but it is a high-end escort industry, okay? No matter what excuses you find, oh, the war in Ukraine, oh, this, it is a high-end escort agency or escort industry, because there need not be a business attached. And it is an industry where young women exchange intimacy for financial compensation. There's also the transnational marriage market, but that is not what we are talking about here. what I am hearing from the likes of Lani and others is that if Andrew ordered a Russian girl of 24 from one of these places in Mayfair and Chelsea and send her to his home, the royal family may not have been pleased. His security may even have been pissed. But it would not have been seen as trafficking or anything illegal in Britain. So what is the difference? Again, this happens every single day. There are even television programs about these girls being picked out of a darn catalogue and then brought to Britain. But no one's calling that out and calling it illegal or calling it trafficking. So what's the difference? Anyway, when it really gets to me and I really want to bash Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor myself is when it comes to the stories of younger girls. The one which is more than my sensibilities can handle is the one where allegedly Maxwell tortured a young girl and Andrew watched. Now, if that turns out to be true, then I sincerely hope he gets charged with at the very least, attempted murder. Well, let me tell you why I think it may be true. This story or allegation, whatever you wish to call it, is indeed documented in an FBI document dated December 7th, 2020. An unnamed female accuser stated that she was taken to Frogmore Cottage on the Windsor estate in the mid-1990s. She alleged that she was drugged at night by her father and taken to a party. She said she was restrained on a table and tortured by Maxwell and surrounded by watching men. She said she remembered Andrew's face. She also stated that she recognized Frogmore Cottage when it was featured on the news during its renovations in 2018. Now, this is indeed now being investigated by the Surrey Police. Now, the point I wish to make, well, among many others, is that I'm hyper glad police are finally, after more than 15 years, investigating this. It is a start. But I'm also so frustrated by the fact that the likes of Lani is indeed muddying the water with all kinds of unproven, salacious stories and gossip. As far as I'm concerned, the only good thing which came from his book, and admittedly it is huge, let us give him that, is the fact that it did put pressure on the police to investigate Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. However, this leads to another big question. When are police going to arrest and detain Sarah Ferguson? In my opinion, she knows as much as her husband does about the Epstein business and about other shady business deals. And at least Andrew did not sleep or party with Diddy. I'm just saying. Next question. Why is nobody talking about Andrew, Sarah, and Nygaard? What did Sarah in particular put her daughters through? Why did she drag them along to all these bank balances with strings? Couldn't she sell herself without help? I mean, it is really disgusting. Okay, now I'm not done. By now we saw in released files that the Queen was basically instrumental to Andrew getting the position as special envoy, or then special representative for international trade and investment, a position he took over from Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent. Now, if you or I would say, I would like to have a gold bracelet, someone may go, that's nice, my dear, and that is where it will stay. But if the Queen went, I would like a gold bracelet, it would be on her desk by noon. So by just expressing a wish, she knew Andrew would get the position. I also think that those who are surprised about what is said about the Queen in those released documents either does not know how the royals and the elite work, or they are hypocrites or sycophants. Of course, the Queen wanted her son out of the military, and of course she was going to put a word in for him. I mean, it just is what it is. Lesser people than the Queen have done so. She was indeed still a mother, albeit a rich and powerful one. Also, Andrew still had a modicum of dignity about him at the time, so I'm willing to forgive the Queen. She was from a different era, where certain things were hushed up and swept under the rug, especially if you were rich. I remember when I was about 17, a friend's cousin caused the death of 3 people because he was driving drunk. After a court case heard on and off over about 3 months, he had his license suspended for a year or 2. Yeah, 3 people dead, and all he got was a suspended license. Now why? Because his dad owned a large portion of the town. It wasn't right then, and it's still not right now, but it happened and still happens. What the Queen should not have done are 2 things. She should have listened to Prince Philip and not have welcomed Sarah back, and secondly, she should not have allowed for Virginia Giuffre to be paid off. That case should have continued, because to this day I battle to see Virginia specifically as a victim. She was a victim, and I mean this, when she was 12 or 13, okay? When she was being prostituted the first time, or abused by a family member, if that is indeed true. But after that she ran away, and she was indeed prostituted by another man until her brother pulled her out of the situation. And then she went to therapy. She got a job at Mar-a-Lago, but she opted to go work for Epstein. Indeed, by the age of 17, she knew what she was doing, and she had a propensity to tell lies. The battle between Andrew and Virginia should have played itself out. But then, can we necessarily blame the Queen for that? By then, Charles, for all practical purposes, were already in charge of monarchy business. So I highly doubt that decision was made by the Queen. And now, talking about Charles, it certainly appears that sexual misconduct runs in the family. Of course, there was Lord Mountbatten, the father or grandfather. Poor Charles never had. Lord Mountbatten's behaviours and kinky preferences were very well known, and even well beyond the elite circle. Yet no one complained, and no one did anything about it. Instead, they, I would say literally, sacrificed their children and even bragged about it. Like poor Paul Maxwell, who died in the same explosion which claimed Mountbatten. Mountbatten hired Paul Maxwell, 15 at the time, but a rather childlike, small 15. He hired him as a boatman, inexperienced, 15 years old, and even today, well, I think his father's deceased by now, but until 2015 at least, his father would tell everyone who listened how proud he was that Paul was chosen by such a great man. Let that sink in. Then Charles himself. Today we are howling like wolves about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And, don't come for me, quite rightly, we deserve the truth. And if Andrew did anything illegal, then he should pay like anyone else, whatever that payment may look like. And if it looks like a 3x3 cold cell, then so be it. The world needs to be protected from criminals. And if he did criminal deeds, then we need protection from Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And it is time we take the allegations against Andrew serious and stop salivating after all the other tiny little bits of salacious gossip. Who cares whether he had professional adult ladies over to the Royal Lodge? It is not illegal, and it is water under the bridge. But if he committed treason and was a participant in torture rituals and deeds with girls 16 and younger, in other words, children, then sorry, it is not water under the bridge. Anyway, I digressed really badly. I was going to ask, seeing that the crowd has no problem yelling out, Charles, Charles, when did you know about Andrew? Why don't they swap it up with Charles, Charles, when did you know about Savile? Or Charles, Charles, why did you ignore the charges against Ball? Come on, I ask you. I think it's a reasonable question. Savile died before the world found out about what a disgusting, vile creature he was. Now, I refuse to accept that after a friendship of 30 years, Charles knew absolutely nothing. Actually, I know that that is not true. Prince Philip knew. If Prince Philip knew, how could Charles not know? It is said that after Savile's death, Palace staff, or Charles's staff, removed letters from Charles to Savile from his home. Why? The thing is that there needs to be a cleansing of sorts, a fresh start for the monarchy to survive. And I'm telling you, it sounds like hypocrisy to me when I'm told by people what a wonderful success Charles was in the United States one day, and told that he was 10 times worse than Andrew the very next day. Make up your minds. Britain needs to find out the truth. And if the truth means Charles and his brother must be sent to Siberia, hypothetically speaking, or then left out in the cold, then so be it. William is already starting to change his own reign. He is ready. Let's give him the opportunity to fix things before there's nothing left to fix. Okay. When I'm back with the next one, we'll talk about William, because I think that by now it is very clear that William is distancing himself, his family, and his future reign from the reign of his father. I think his appearance on Heart, the morning show, was an eye-opener. So we'll talk about that as well in the next episode. So until then, please take care of yourselves, stay vigilant, and stay safe. Bye.